since then, he was a relatively unknown back then, but very quickly propelled himself into the WordPress community full on, and is now one of the, well, he's the lead in WP Bosses, the Google Hangout, and has a company called Bearded Friend and WP Barber. So he's here to talk about how to just get in and just do it. So put your hands together for Robey.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I can skip the first 5 slides now. That's... yeah, I'm going to be telling you why you should just do it. My name is Robey Lawrence, as in Robey One Kenobi, not Robey. I do respond to that, but a little less enthusiastically. Again, hashtag website. And anyone familiar with Shia LaBeouf? Yeah. Anyway, so about me, I started using WordPress in about 2013, so only 3 to 4 years ago. Like Nick said, I have a business called Bearded Friend where I do web development, and then another business called the WP Barber where I do website grooming or maintenance. I organise the WordPress Port Macquarie meetup and co-host WP Bosses, like Nick said, which is a monthly podcast we do online where we interview other, I guess, leaders or other talent from the Australian community, whether that's consultants or developers or marketers or just people in that space. Talk to me about that more if you want to know more. So, I went into IT straight out of high school, worked in that field for about 5 years. That's an actual photo of my office. I was heavily into multitasking. Wasn't my choice. Yeah, so I was doing that for about 5 years, setting up emails for Richard and fixing Ethel's printer. And at the end of the day, I was like, what did I achieve today? Cool, she can send emails and he can, print his brochures. Cool. But I didn't really, when I said that to my parents or my friends, when they said, what do you do this week? It wasn't really anything to be proud of. So that's why I wanted to get into web development. It wasn't too much of a career pivot, but at the end of the day, I could have something to say, this is what I've built. You can visually see this is what I've done. It just feels good to make something with your hands, even if I'm not very buff, so I wouldn't make a great, carpenter or... So, yeah, I can just sit down and still come up with something at the end of the day. It was about 5 years when I thought, maybe I could convince my boss that we could start building websites for our clients. Because we had a few come to us and say, can you do, websites is IT, you obviously do that, which is obviously not always the case. But my boss, not liking to say no to anything, said, yeah, sure. In the back of his mind, yeah, Robey said something about websites. Yeah, we can work that. Yeah, let's do that. And so that's kind of how I got started in building sites. There's a couple of quotes here. I'm not necessarily going to read them, but I think they're pretty cool. This one kind of related to multitasking, so I thought. I skipped a slide, but that's okay. That's an example of the first website I built. I think back in the day I purchased a license for Elegant Themes, which is $39, gives you a license to use any theme in their suite. Basically it looked exactly like that. All I did was put in the logo and the picture and the phone number, called it a day. and the client was actually happy with it. So, so I thought, yeah, I'm pretty good at this. This website stuff is cool. But I did realise that that's obviously not going to work for everyone. I still need to expand my education and capabilities, and so I thought, how do I do that? I'm in a small town. We lived in Port Macquarie at the time. It's kind of like the small town mentality when all the other web developers were really, they didn't want to share their own business workflows or anything. They were really competitive. They were scared if they shared their workflows and processes that, you know, someone else would come and steal their clients or, yeah. So yeah, there wasn't a meetup or anything around. There was no community, and I felt like that's what I needed. So I joined some Facebook groups, which is the next slide. While I'm here, yeah, no success is too small to celebrate. That was the website I built was small, but I still celebrated it nonetheless. Facebook groups. There's about 2 billion WordPress Facebook groups online. I can't join them all. There's a small selection of them. But that was the closest thing I found to a meetup, I think. Because even though they weren't necessarily face-to-face, there were still people that did the same thing as me. I could talk to them and bounce ideas off them, bounce problems off them, help other people in return. And I kind of felt like I was part of something. I was like, it's the closest thing I had to a meetup or working in an office or anything, because I was the only web developer in our IT business. So no one else knew anything really. Sad face. Okay, I'll read this one. You don't drown by falling in water. You only drown if you stay there. So I wasn't going to wallow in my sorrows like someone wallowing in their sorrows. So this is my first presentation, by the way. Please forgive me. I thought, you know, last presentation of the day, everyone's going to be a little bit more forgiving. So. Yeah, so I still felt a little restricted, small town, everything. So what we did is we packed up and moved to the Gold Coast, which was in the end a really good decision. But when I came to the Gold Coast, there were meetups there. I looked online as soon as we knew we were going, and I found there was one or two. No, I found one in the Gold Coast. So we moved up. 10 days later, I actually searched this on the meetup.com page and found the first one I RSVP'd to, and it was 10 days after we moved up to the Gold Coast, so I didn't waste any time. It was high on my priority list. So I went along, and I met Paul. Paul is the organiser of the WordPress Gold Coast meetup. I think I met Tracy there. Tracy said, "Oh, I also run this other meetup in the Gold Coast. It's a bit more, you know, casual. Do a dinner." I thought, yes, I'm coming to that. Free dinner. That's not the only reason, by the way, Tracy, but she is a good cook. And then I met Nick and Grant and Ricky, all at this Gold Coast meetup. I'm like, okay, I'm only like a month into this whole moving business, and I've already made 5 contacts. That's more than I had in like the last 12 months in Port Macquarie. So that's like an obvious sign that this was a really good choice. And then I think it was Ricky might have told me about the meetup in Brisbane. So I went along to that, and then I met a whole stack of other new people. And then they said, okay, There's also this thing called a word camp, which is like a mega meetup. And obviously I was like, okay, let's go. And then I met more people. And you might recognize them. A lot of them actually spoke here today as well. And yeah, so I was like really digging this community stuff. And so I thought, let's do this more regularly than a word camp or a meetup. And so what we started doing was this thing called co-working, which is where a group of people, or it can even be 2 people, just get together, bring your laptop, just do some work, just being around each other. You don't have to work on the same thing. We each had our own businesses, so we're doing our own work. But we were all there kind of giving this community vibe. And that was really cool, because like if you had a problem, you could just ask someone else and they might have said, oh yeah, I've gone through the same thing, here's how I solved it. And you say, oh yeah, that really makes sense. Yeah. And not to mention all the food, the beer and chocolates and lunches, and Grant features in a few of these. We went co-working. So on the left there's us at a co-working space. On the right, there's us at the public library. I'm sure there's one at a cafe as well. There's one at Tracy's house. There's one at Nick's house. I'm sorry they're a little bit dark. I'm a web developer, not a photographer. Yeah, a lot of food. As I said, rubber ducking or rubber duck debugging is I think the Wikipedia definition is like when you talk to an inanimate object. You talk through the problem that you're having, and you explain to this rubber duck or whatever it is, and through that explanation, the solution just comes to you without anyone talking to you. Just going through that process in your mind, you learn the answer. So that's, and then if the rubber ducking doesn't work, then there's real people to help, give the real answer. The beginning of this year, 2017, we moved back to Port Macquarie. We thought we'd got a lot out of the Gold Coast, and by going back to Port Macquarie, that's where both of our families live. I'd already had a lot of business connections down there. We had moved up to the Gold Coast because we wanted to get out of Port Macquarie. We'd been there since we were in primary school. We just wanted to experience life outside of a small town. So the beginning of this year we moved back, which was kind of happy and sad at the same time. But there was still no meetup, and I knew I was going to suffer withdrawals without meetups down there. So I thought, I've been to a few meetups over time. I have an idea of what's involved, so I decided to start one. So in February this year was our first event. This is our room. This is before people arrived. This is not showing how many. That's not indicative of the turnout. We actually had about 10 people for the first 5 months, I was really impressed. I was still going to keep going even if we had 3 people or 4 people. But we had 10. We have a co-organiser who is the author of the Gravity PDF plugin. He actually lives in Telegraph Point, which is near Port Macquarie. He helps us run. Mel, my wife, helps run the meetup as well. And I checked the site today, and our next meetup, which is next week, has 19 RSVPs. So we're kind of thinking how they're all going to fit into that room. Might have to move that table, I think. So these are a few of the things that I've put my time into over the last Well, actually, the first two, WP Bosses and the Gold Coast Meetup, were two things that I started being involved in last year. The Port Macquarie Meetup, Australian Word Camp, which represents this, volunteering to do a talk. And the WP Crowd is a similar kind of show to the WP Bosses, but I'm not an organiser there. I've started contributing there last week, actually, just participating in discussions, in videos, and I might write some articles in the future. There's a little funny GIF there. Just about when you get involved in the community, everyone else sees that passion and they're really happy to give back, which is cool. You can find meetups near you. There's a little cool map thing on wpaustralia.org. Or you can join our Slack channel. You might have heard that over the last couple of days. Slack is like the modern day chat room, instant messaging kind of thing. You can find me on Twitter at Robey Lawrence. There's the URLs for my businesses. And if you want to try something new, what's the worst that can happen? And I'm not going to say it because I'm a tease. Just do it. Thank you.
Well, Robey's journey is one from obscurity to fame and stardom. So he's been involved in a lot of things. I thought and I've known him for only 3 years, but I swear he's been around for 10 years or more. He's that involved. But he's got a good experience. So any questions for him?
Where's your next,
Gosh. Well, I'm actually, I don't know. This was like, where to next? So now that this is done, now I can think about that. Maybe organising a word camp, I don't know.
Did you hear that, Dion?
Yeah, very good question. Happy to answer that. We mainly talk about the guest as a person, and so we ask about their origin story and what they used to do and how they came to do what they're doing now. Same kind of question as Neil, like what next? What do they have planned? Like if they build a plugin, like what features they expect are gonna come, or if they're a consultant, what venture they're gonna undertake next. It's just about, because there's so much WordPress talent in Australia that not many people know about. For example, if you've heard of the plugin Advanced Custom Fields, the author of that was Elliot Condon. I was talking to someone else the other day and said, yeah, we interviewed him on the WP Bosses podcast, and they said, oh, is he from Australia? And yeah, it's just that's a good example of just raising awareness, I guess, or making people known in the country.
Just like you mentioned, the East Coast trailer parks, they're still very happy with their website.
Yes, that screenshot was taken a few days ago.
Are they on a maintenance plan?
There's not a lot to maintain, to be honest.
What's been some of your part of your learning curve, especially you've obviously come from into this starting your own business. So what's been the learning curve from doing so?
How to balance it with life, how to get enough sleep, how to eat properly at the same time. It's been very very difficult, but I'm glad that I did it. I don't know. I think it would be very hard for me to go back to working for someone else now. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but it'd be definitely a very big transition to go back as well. Does that answer your question? Do you want me to keep talking?
So what did you come across that you didn't think would be an issue, but you've gone, I have to do this, and I didn't realise it?
I probably underestimated a lot of the business side of doing things. I thought, yeah, I'm just going to develop websites, spit them out, client's going to pay me in the amount in the required time, everything's going to be happy, then I'll move on to the next job, do it again, rinse and repeat. But it doesn't always work like that. Well, it can work when you do all the work beforehand to set up your procedures and your documentation and get the right people doing the right things instead of trying to do everything yourself. And then, if you're not great at doing paperwork, it can take you 5 times as long as someone who is good at it. So just get someone who is good at it to do it. Same as why I build websites for people is I do it because I can do it well and they can concentrate on what they're good at. So yeah, trying to wear all the hats as a sole business owner is probably the biggest thing that I didn't expect.
Robey. Hi,
Oh. Hi, Paul.
Hi. So tell me tell us a little bit more about the WP Barber and how you came up with that branding, because I'm not sure how you got the logo and stuff like that. So
No? Okay. Well, Bearded Friend, actually, I think Mel and I came up with it together. This is Mel, my wife. Because I like to be outside of the box. I don't I didn't want to be Port Macquarie web design, and I wanted to be really, friendly and casual and something a bit different. I wanted to try and attract those. I didn't want to attract corporate clients, really. I didn't want to attract, accountants and lawyers, though I've got a couple of those. They're cool people. It was more just about trying to attract the right people who could appreciate a bit of a whimsical brand, and so they're like, okay, friend, that's kind of casual, that's, friendly. And then I had a beard at the time. Not allowed to shave it now. And then when it came to the WP Barber, I thought, let's just continue on with that brand. I put it under a separate brand because I don't know if I want to do it forever. So I thought if it becomes a self-sustaining kind of brand, I'm not necessarily tied to it with my current web development business. But they're still kind of sister sites, I guess. Would be weird if your sister had a beard, but there. And so I thought grooming is like maintenance of the beard. So my maintenance plans are called grooming options. So you've got beard balm is the lower plan. Then you've got just a trim, and then you've got cutthroat, which is the higher plan.
Just as a precaution,
No, I haven't. Cleanly shaven, maybe. Clean. No, good thought. No one steal that, please.
Excellent, Robey. First go. Great.
Thank you.
I was just wondering, how did you feel when you moved back to
It was happy and sad at the same time. Happy because we were back near family and still friends that live in that area. We're familiar with the area. It's not that I'm a big surfer, but it's close to the beaches. I mean, Gold Coast is too, but Port Macquarie's beaches are better. But sad because I left a lot of my friends behind who I only see at these kind of events. But hope to see them more in future. All goes well, business goes well, I can do a bit more traveling. The good thing about being a web developer is you're not always location dependent. You can do a bit of travel, and for example, when I moved back to Port Macquarie from the Gold Coast, I still kept all my customers. I just sent them an email and said, hey, just letting you know I'm moving. They said, good luck. They're still customers, because I've even got customers that I haven't even spoken to on the phone. They've just sent me an email, said this is what I want. I sent them what they wanted. They said thank you, and they're still customers.
Robey,
Yeah.
What's been your biggest contribution that WordPress has made to you, and what do you think your biggest contribution to WordPress community has been?
Gosh, Nick. That is a pretty cool screensaver. I think the biggest contribution to me has been the community, really, just the people, to like everyone here. I don't know if everyone's been pretty nice. I don't think I've ever run into anyone who's said a bad word, really. Everyone's just here to help each other. No one's competing with each other. Everyone, writes plugins for free and says, here, if you want to do this, here's how you do it. I spent hours and hours writing this, but you can use it for free. The biggest, what was the second question? The biggest thing.
Back to WordPress.
Ooh. Apart from the beard. Well, Dion has me beat there, I think. I don't know. I don't know if there's a single biggest thing. I think maybe there's just lots of little things, as my quote before. Even the small successes warrant celebration. So, can I ask your answer? What do you think has been my biggest?
Good, just throw it out. I think your biggest contribution has been the fact that since I've met you, you have thrown yourself into the community 110%, and and have been willing to give so much. And I think your curiosity to learn has been, I think, sort of an inspiration for people in the community to actually just see how quickly you can get involved and how much you get back out of it. And just a simple thing like the WP Bosses podcast, have been involved in that with you as well, is I don't think I'd have the energy to start it, to carry it on and maintain it, but I love being part of it. And you've managed to gather together a whole lot of people from around the Australian community into that one single place there to have quite a free and open discussion. So, and I personally got some insights out of that there from all of these other people, but you're the person that runs it and coordinates it all. So I think your contribution's been great.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to say at the start.
And the fact that there are other people from upstairs late coming into the room, let's give another big round of applause to Robey. And we have a gift for you to thank you for your contribution here. And we have a special
Thank you.
box of WordPress chocolates.